I never believed my grandmother's stories about the Devil's Valen, abandoned asylum deep in the Appalachian woods, where she claimed souls could be heard, screaming on windless nights until I inherited her cabin and found a rusted key in her locked sewing box, labeled only with those words, Devil's Vale. The locals all warned me not to go looking for it, speaking of the place like a curson called it a myth. Others said it was where sound goes to die. But every map I checked had a blank patch deep in the forest where the topography blurred like static. After a week of sleepless curiosity and strange dreams, where voices whispered in a language I didn't understand, I gave in and hiked out at dawn, using the key like a compass. It grew warmer in my hand the closer I got. After 3 hours of hiking through thick, silent woods, no birds, no wind, just a growing feeling of pressure in my skull, I found it. A massive iron gate hanging from collapsed stone pillars, covered in symbols I'd never seen before, behind which stood a crumbling, multi-story asylum carved into the hillside, its windows black and its doors half open like a waiting mouth. The air grew colder as I stepped through, my breath fogging despite the summer heat, and the moment I entered the building, all natural sound stopped. The insects, the leaves, even the crunch of gravel under my boot sand. The silence was so total, it roared in my ears. The first hallway smelled of sulfur and rot, and the walls were clawed, not just scratched, but deeply gouged in desperate, inhuman patterns. I should have left, but something pulled me deeper, room by room, old patient beds still chained to the floor, journals full of nonsense equations written in blood, a broken baby crib filled with black feathers, and a padded cell where the padding had been removed and replaced with mirrors shattered inward as if something inside had tried to escape itself. I turned to leave then, truly, only to find the entrance hall gone. Where the door once was, there was now a corridor lined with statues of people screaming, each face hauntingly familiar. My old teacher, my dead cousin, my father, and I ran, desperate to find another way out. But the halls looped, the floor plans shifted, and stairwells turned to ladders, or wells, or flesh. I found myself in what looked like an old operating theater, dimly lit by a single flickering light swinging overhead, and on the table lay a body under a sheet. My own face stared up at me, cold and lifeless eyes open. I stumbled back, screaming, only to hear that scream echoed identical from somewhere deeper in the building. And it wasn't alone. More voices joined in, mine distorted, arguing with itself, mocking, sobbing, screaming, whispering unspeakable secrets only I should know. I was being unraveled. Time didn't work inside the Devil's Vale. I experienced days, maybe weeks, in what must have been only hours. I watched versions of myself live lives I never lived. One hung from the rafters, another painted symbols on the walls in blood. One knelt in prayer until their knees wore down to bone. I saw the memory of my grandmother's death replaying on loop in a corridor where every door led back to her last breath. The building was feeding on memory, on trauma, on identity. I was being absorbed into it. Eventually, I met the others, dozens of them, eyeless, jawless, crawling along walls or weeping in corners. Half-human husks who'd once entered looking for truth or escape. One of them pointed at me and screamed a soundless scream, and suddenly the room itself grew teeth. Literal teeth rows of bone erupting from the tiles, biting the air, walls closing in like ribs. and through a tiny window in a ceiling that didn't exist before, I saw myself watching from above, smiling. I ran until my legs collapsed, dragging myself into a nursery room filled with cribs that rocked by themselves, each one containing something twitching under burlap sacks. One moved like a human infant, one like a spider, and one whispered, "Come closer, son," my father's voice. I fled again, and the building changed around me. It was my high school, then my childhood home, then a burning hospital, all flickering like dying film. I realized the devil's veil doesn't just trap people, it becomes them. I don't know how I finally made it out. I remember clawing through drywall, through meat, through soil and tree roots, and emerging into the forest drenched in blood and weeping. The key melted into my palm. I was gone for 3 hours, but when I got back to the cabin, a week had passed. My phone was filled with static videos of me sleeping in places I'd never been. My voice had changed, slightly deeper, not mine. And every night since, I hear things outside the cabin, shuffling steps, knocks in threes, whispers in that same ancient language. I lock the key in a box, but sometimes it's warm again. Sometimes the door creaks open on its own. And I know something from Devil's Veil came back with me.